All right, fellow engineers, let's talk. Today, we're going to do a proper technical deep dive into a framework that's been making some serious waves for anyone building multi-agent systems that actually have to, work in production. And that's CrewAI.
So let's just get right to it, because we've all been there, right? You build this awesome proof of concept, it's working like a charm on your local machine, you're super excited, but then the dreaded conversation about actually deploying it starts. Scaling it, making it reliable, suddenly things just get messy, really, really fast.
And yeah, these are the usual culprits, aren't they? That prototype trap is a very real thing. Before you know it, you're wrestling with performance bottlenecks because of some clunky, heavy abstractions. Debugging feels like trying to find a needle in a haystack. And that brilliant POC, it feels like it's a world away from being a real production-grade app.
And this is exactly where CrewAI steps in. It's not just another agent framework. It was purpose-built to tackle these specific problems. You got to pay attention to the language here. Lean, lightning-fast, production-grade. This thing was engineered from the ground up for performance, not bolted on top of some other heavy framework.
So here's the game plan for today. We're going to look at its production-first philosophy, then the whole crews versus flows duality, which is super interesting. We'll deconstruct the core components, walk through building your first crew, check out some advanced production features, and then wrap up with a key question. Is this thing right for you?
Okay, first things first, and this is probably the most important architectural point to get. CrewAI is not just a wrapper around something like LangChain. That was a very deliberate decision. By building it from scratch, they could focus entirely on speed and efficiency. It means they're not inheriting the performance overhead or the, let's be honest, the technical debt that can come from building on these huge monolithic frameworks.
All right, now let's get to what I think is the most elegant, honestly brilliant part of its design, and that's this concept of the duality between crews and flows. This is really the secret sauce that gives you so much flexibility when you're orchestrating how your agents are going to work together.
Think of it like this. At a high level, it's actually pretty simple. You use crews for autonomy and collaboration. When you need a bunch of smart agents to figure something out, kind of like a creative research team. And you use flows for precision and control, when you need a reliable, step-by-step, totally predictable process, more like a traditional business workflow.
But here's the kicker. The real magic isn't in just picking one or the other. It's in how you can combine them. Imagine this. You can have a super precise, predictable flow that's managing a whole business process. But then, at one specific step, it can kick off and delegate a really complex, open-ended problem to an autonomous crew. This hybrid approach is it's incredibly powerful because that's actually how the real world works, right? A mix of structured process and creative problem solving.
Okay, time to roll up our sleeves a bit. Let's get into the nitty-gritty and look at the actual building blocks you'll be coding with. At the API level, it really boils down to four main things. You've got your agents, your tasks, your tools, and the process.
So, the agent. This is your core worker, your team member. And what's cool is how you configure it. It's totally persona-driven. You give it a role, a specific goal, and even a backstory. And let me be clear, this is not just fluff or flavor text. The LLM genuinely uses this narrative to shape everything: its tone, its assumed expertise, and how it approaches problems. It's a powerful way to guide the model.
And this slide really shows the fine-grained control you have as an engineer. It goes way beyond just the persona. You can flip these switches for critical production behaviors. For example, allow delegation. That flips your process from a simple pipeline into a dynamic, collaborative team. Memory gives your crew a memory, so it can learn across jobs. And reasoning gives the agent a moment to think and plan before it jumps into action. These are serious toggles that change everything.
Next up is the task. If the agent is the who, the task is the what. It's a single, discrete unit of work. And hey, here's a serious pro tip for when you're building for production. Get super specific with the expected output. Don't just say, give me a summary. Say, give me a summary as a JSON object with keys, title, and bullets. Being that precise is the absolute key to getting reliable, machine-parsable results every time.
So, how do you actually link these tasks together into a workflow? It all comes down to one attribute: context. This is the glue. You simply pass the output of a previous task into the context of the next one. That's it. That's how you build your dependency chain and make sure the work of one agent flows directly into the next, creating a logical sequence.
And finally, you define the process. This is your high-level strategy for how the whole crew is going to collaborate. Sequential is exactly what it sounds like. A straight line, one task after another. Simple, predictable. But hierarchical is where things get really interesting. The framework literally spins up a manager agent for you. This manager looks at the big goal, breaks it down, delegates the smaller tasks to the other agents, and then synthesizes the final result. It's like having built-in intelligent project management.
Okay, enough theory for a minute. Let's talk practice. How do you actually build your first crew? The good news is, CrewAI has a really clear golden path for development, and it's designed to push you towards best practices from the very beginning.
It's a really clean four-step deal. First, you scaffold your project using the command line tool. This gives you a nice, standardized folder structure. Then you configure your agents and tasks, but you do it in separate YAML files. We'll see why that's cool in a sec. Step 3 is orchestrating it all in your crew.py file, and finally, you jump over to main.py to feed it some inputs and kick the whole thing off.
Now let's focus on that YAML configuration for a second. This is such a smart design choice. It cleanly separates the persona, the description of your agent, from your Python code. Why does that matter? It makes your system way easier to maintain and tweak later on. Plus, see that topic placeholder? You can dynamically inject variables at runtime. This makes your agents incredibly reusable for different jobs.
And then in your crew.py file, this is where you wire it all together. You load that YAML config, you assign the task to a specific agent, and then, look right there, the context attribute. That's the critical piece. It's explicitly linking this reporting task to the output of the research task. That single line of code is what defines the entire data flow of your workflow.
Okay, so we've covered the basics of building a crew, but let's talk about the advanced stuff. These are the features that are really designed for building serious, robust, enterprise-grade systems. This is what lifts CrewAI out of the cool prototype category and into the real-world tool category.
First up, the memory system is, well, it's seriously powerful. And it's not just one thing, it's multi-layered. You've got short-term memory, which is basically a RAG system for the current job, giving the agent a dynamic knowledge base. Then there's long-term memory, which persists between jobs, so your crew can actually learn and get better over time. And finally, entity memory, which helps it build up a deep understanding of specific people, places, or concepts. This whole system is what turns your agents from stateless tools into actors that actually have context. And then there's the training feature. You can think of this as a really practical, built-in version of RLHF, reinforcement learning from human feedback. It's a simple loop. You run your crew in a special training mode, it stops and asks you for feedback on its work, you correct it or approve it. Then the framework takes your feedback and automatically turns it into a set of best practices. The next time the crew runs, it uses those best practices to guide its performance. It's a straightforward way to make your agents more consistent and aligned with what you want.
Okay, so we've seen all these powerful features. Now for the million-dollar question. Is CrewAI actually the right tool for your next project? Let's look at a simple decision framework that can help you figure that out.
I think this matrix is the perfect way to reason about it. Just map your problem on two axes. How much precision do you need, and how complex is the task? If it's low complexity and you need creativity, like brainstorming blog post ideas, a simple crew is perfect. If it's low complexity but needs to be precise, like extracting data from a document, a flow with some LLM calls is your best bet. And as you move up into high complexity, you start using complex crews for research or even flows that orchestrate other crews from massive enterprise systems. It's a great map for choosing the right architecture.
So, look, here's the bottom line. CrewAI is a seriously robust, performance-first toolkit designed to get you out of the prototype trap. It gives you these clean architectural patterns, crews, flows, and that powerful hybrid model to build multi-agent systems that are actually reliable enough to automate real, complex business workflows. So I guess the only real question left is, what complex workflow are you going to automate first?